So yesterday we were discussing regarding the strategic management process, and we happen to discuss this diagram in the strategic management process. But this the diagram clearly depicts the various phases or the various stages of our strategic management process. So strategic management process starts with strategic intent and then leads to strategy formation, and strategy formation once is done, then we move to strategy implementation, and from strategy implementation we move to strategy evaluation. Okay, so these are the various phases or various stages of our strategic management. So in yesterday's class in strategic intent, we happen to go in depth. We discussed the meaning of strategic intent, and then we also discussed regarding the components of strategic intent, the various components that we have got in strategic intent, the four components broadly speaking: vision, mission, business definition, goals and objectives that we discussed in yesterday's class. And finally, we concluded strategic decision taking the example how Japan, after having been hit by two atomic bombs, happened to revolutionize the world with technology. Right? Japan happens to be the pioneer in introducing technology to the human interface. It was the first country to introduce robots and first country to introduce the technology of solar. Today, if people are using solar trains, people are using solar cars or solar watches and all. Now that technology was given by Japan. And then we also took the example of, our own Indian example. We have taken the case of Tata Ace. Now, with the help of this particular strategic intent, how Tata Ace was able to understand the need of the Indian customer, and how it has introduced a revolutionary product like Ace, which was, that particular segment was only driven by three-wheeler autos, and then they happened to launch a car-like vehicle in a four-wheeler segment. They will launch a four-wheeler vehicle, and that happened to revolutionize the one-ton category goods market in India. So today we shall move further, and then having completed strategic intent, now let's start off our class with strategy formulation. Right. So how do we define something called strategy formulation? So when we look at strategy formulation in strategic intent, what did we do? We identified our destination. Right, what is the destination of the organization, what an organization wants to be in future. We happen to identify that particular destination. Having done that, we have prepared a roadmap, a blueprint or a roadmap in order to achieve that particular destination. Right, and that, for achieving that particular destination after 5 years, so year wise we happen to have certain objectives. Right, and then we also discussed the meaning of our business definition tells us why actually we are in this particular business, and whom are we serving, and who are our partners in the business, and where we would like to go. So that particular part having we discussed. Having done that, the next thing that an organization has to do is has to prepare a strategy. And in this particular formula, in this particular formulation of strategy, right, formulating a strategy, organization first needs to look introspect its own self. Okay, so strategy formulation starts with environmental scanning. So organization has to scan the environment. Scan the environment for what? Scan the environment to know whether the conditions, the economic conditions are conducive, the economic conditions are encouraging, or the economic conditions are not favorable. Now, sometimes if the economic conditions are not favorable, whatever vision that we have got, now that particular vision may not be practical. So to have the practical approachability, we'll have to do an environmental scanning. Say, for example, in the current time when we are having this particular pandemic, now this particular pandemic has hit the businesses across the spectrum. Right, economy as such has stumbled. Now we are predicting a growth rate of just 1 or 2% for our economy. which was around 5%, right? So in such particular times, now when we are formulating this particular strategy, sometimes we have to hold our plans for that. We'll have to hold our plans for future based on the economic conditions, right? So no point now at this particular time in current times like pandemic, every resource is very, very useful, right? So resources have to be reallocated to somewhere else. Resources have to be reallocated to some other place. Now we have seen in case of the human resources, most of the people have lost the jobs. And those particular people who are doing jobs, they are being paid only half salary. Nobody is being paid full salary these days. Right from the CEOs to the employees at the grassroots level, most of them are paid only half salaries. Right. So in such a scenario where we have this particular constraint on the human resources, we need to be very careful on what particular purpose, for what particular purpose we are using this particular, for what particular purpose we're using this particular human resources, right? So now in scenarios like this, strategy will be put on hold. So now for the organization, it is a matter of survival. So now organization is going to focus on its struggle for survival, right? So for that particular reason, in order to understand the economic conditions prevailing outside the organization, organization has to do an environmental scanning. So once an organization does this environmental scanning, organization will know whether there is a risk or whether there are opportunities, whether the market conditions are conducive, market conditions are encouraging for implementing the strategy or formulating the strategy, or market conditions are not encouraged, right? So taking considering that market conditions are encouraging and market conditions are conducive for expansion of the businesses, right? Then after having done the economic after having done this particular environmental scanning, next thing organization is going to do is a SWOT analysis. All right. So in this particular SWOT analysis, organization is going to identify what are its strengths, and using this particular strengths, how to capitalize on the opportunities present in the market. Similarly, what are the threats that are there in the market, and how do we overcome those particular threats? And in the face of intense competition, what are the weaknesses that we have got? Where are those particular areas which our competitors are giving us a run for our money, right? Those particular areas which our competitors are striking us very badly, or Achilles heel, right? So that organization, the weak point, that organization happens to identify with the SWOT analysis. In the next stage, what organization does is organization goes for the, in case of those particular organizations which have got multiple businesses, then in that particular stage, then they go for the portfolio analysis like BCG matrix or GE9 cell matrix. Now this particular matrices like Boston Consulting Group BCG matrix, four quadrant, and GE9 cell, as the very name implies, nine quadrant, right? So this particular matrices are going to tell in which particular state of businesses are. Those particular businesses which are profitable, those particular businesses which are average, those particular businesses which are losses, and those particular businesses which are continuously losses and draining all the resources of the organization. Now, once we have an idea on that, then based on the businesses, then we are going to come out with a multi-fold strategy. If the product is a single product, single organization, single market, right? Single product, single organization, single market, we're going to have a single strategy. But when an organization is operating with multiple products in multiple markets and in multiple countries, right, then it cannot have a single strategy. It's going to come out with a multi-fold strategy. So in case of this large and giant multinational organizations, now some those for those particular set of businesses which are draining organization resources, and where these resources are highly unprofitable, they don't come under the core competence area of the business also. Organization is going to divest from those particular businesses, or organization is going to liquidate them, right? Shut down those particular businesses, right? And then focus and then put these particular resources on those particular organizations, businesses which are running profit. And those particular businesses which are average and below average, pump resources so as to turn them around and make them profit, right? So based on all this, so here in the strategy formulation, what we are going to do, we are going to do an environmental scanning. We are going to do a SWOT analysis, and then we are going to see where our businesses are, and then we are going to come up with multiple choices of strategies, right? And finally, organization is going to crystallize or freeze one or few strategies, right? So that is called as strategic choice. So with strategic choice, strategy formulation stage ends. Now, having done the strategic choice, then we move on to strategy implementation. So, in the strategic choice, from this plethora of alternatives that we have got, organization happens to crystallize or freeze one or few strategies which are practical or which can be implemented. So having done that, next stage, we are going to implement the strategy. So for implementing the strategy, what we need is resource allocation. If you recall the first classes that we remembered, when we look at the definition of strategy, so strategy there was defined as long-term objectives of an organization plus action plan of an organization plus resource allocation. Long-term objectives, strategic intent, done. Action plan, strategy formation and choice, done. Now we come to strategy implementation. So at this particular stage, what an organization needs is resources. Only when the organization has got resources, then only it will be able to implement, then only it will be able to implement and execute this particular strategy. Now without you know resources, it's not possible for an organization to implement them. Okay, so what organization needs is resources. So resources are very important at this particular stage. At this particular stage of time, we need this particular resource. And this particular implementation of the strategy happens in multifold, right? So we have got procedural implementation, we have got structural implementation, right? We have got behavioral implementation, so on and so forth, right? So sometimes for implementing the strategy, we have to change our organizational structure, right? And sometimes for implementing strategies, we have to adopt new business practices. Might be a subtle changes, minor, right? Subtle changes in our organization culture, right? Subtle changes in this particular uh, hierarchy of the organization structure will have to make certain changes, right? Okay, so why these particular changes? So as to suit the strategy. There might be some bottlenecks when we are implementing the strategy or executing the strategy. There might be some bottlenecks, there might be some certain limitations, certain hurdles, right? Some certain hurdles which are pulling us back, which are not helping us to implement that particular strategy. So in order to overcome this particular speed breakers or overcome this particular bottlenecks, what we need is to change. All right. We need behavioral changes, we need structural changes, we need cultural changes. And at times, if need be, we also need leadership changes. Sometimes leadership in the, leadership at the helm, at the top level management may not be encouraging. Now that particular leadership may not be yielding results. So, so the organization has to change its leadership style. Now some areas transformation leadership works. Now some areas it may not work. Then we'll have to go to participative or democratic. Right. So like that. So based on this particular conditions also, leaderships also we may have to change. Now having done this particular changes and having distributed the resources, and once we start executing, at the end of that particular time, at the end of this particular strategic time, 1 year we have got objectives. We'll have to evaluate whether the organization was able to meet its objectives or not. Right? If the organization is able to meet its objectives, well and good. If the organization is not able to meet its objectives, identify, then use this particular tool called strategic control. Now, where is the mistake? Where are we committing these blunders? And what areas are we supposed to rectify? We need to know, right? Thus, do we need, I mean, is the strategic intent itself wrong? Have we chosen this particular wrong mission? The vision is right, okay, understandable, vision is right, but is the roadmap wrong? The roadmap that we have chosen, is that wrong? Or the objectives that we have set, is there the mistake? Or the mistake lies in our environmental scanning in the strategy formation stage, or we did not do an accurate or approximate SWOT analysis, or else in the implementation part the structural changes did not do well, or the behavioral changes did not do well. So identify, organization has to identify where things have gone wrong and rectify them. That's the strategic control. Say if the organization has achieved its objective. Organization, no, you kept an objective, you achieved this objective. Then we move forward, we march forward. We again have a new set of objectives coming. So at the end of this particular 5 year time, if an organization is successful, it will achieve its objectives. All right. So once this particular objectives are achieved, the vision is fulfilled. And once we reach that particular vision, then we have a new vision. So we are going to renew this particular cycle, right? So the bottom line is the strategic management process never stops. Strategic management process is continuous process. It's a dynamic process and it's a continuous process. They can only be comma. There can only be some ifs and buts, but there's nothing like stop. There's nothing like full stop. Doesn't happen. It's a continuous process. Strategic management process is a continuous, right? Okay. So now let's move on to the strategic vision. As per our syllabus in the first unit, we have the components of strategic intent. So we have 4 components in our syllabus: vision, mission, objectives, and goals. Okay, now let us look at the strategic vision, right? So what is this particular strategic vision? What do you mean this by strategic vision? Strategic vision is ability to foresee the future, right? Ability to foresee the future. Strategic vision tells an organization what it wants to be in the future. Strategic vision helps an organization to identify its destination. So that's what a strategic vision does. So when we look at the attributes of the strategic vision, right? Vision is always future oriented and it's going to answer certain fundamental questions like what will the organization look like, how does it feel like, and what the organization is going to think in the future. Similarly, where is the organization headed, in which particular direction is going to move, and what does the full potential of an organization look like. So this represent the future. Now similarly, vision should always be inspiring and challenging. If there is no inspiration and challenge in this particular vision, right, we cannot bring creativity to workplace. We cannot drive innovation in our work. And when we don't have creativity and innovation at the workplace, work becomes monotonous.
In the sense, work becomes boring, doing the same repetitive job again and again. Mission, since it does not have any life, does a monotonous job. But human has a life. Now, doing certain things again and again leads to boredom. Now, once the boredom sets in, we start losing our skill. We are not going to change, right? If you are not going to be proactive, if you are not going to follow the changes that are happening around us, inside the organization, outside the organization, then organization becomes a static, and no static human being or no static organization can ever be successful. That can never happen. Right? So for that, to break this boredom, to break this monotonous nature of work, vision, strategic vision of an organization, it should always be inspiring and it should always be challenging. Right? So how do we make it inspiring? So organization need to question what is its energizing image that it wants to create in the minds of the people, or what are the desired outcomes that it would like to have, right? And what will propel an organization to move forward. First, what is the dream of an organization, and who is going to have that? The chairman of the organization should have that. Now that particular person should know what an organization should look like. Now he will be having that particular vision in his head. Now that he needs to discuss with his team, the board of the directors, the CEOs, and other executive members, right? Make them believe and then march ahead, right? So it also, vision is also a very motivating, right? It motivates whom? The chairman has got the inspiring and the challenging dream in his head. Now he's going to disclose it to his team, and the team, that particular dream of the chairman should be motivating for the rest of the team, right? And then people also should find a purpose when they're following it, when they look at the future, when they look at this particular future, they should find a purpose, because future is always uncertain, future is always risky, right? So when we present future, most of the time when people are negative minded and they're not positive minded, right? So this particular, pessimist, we call people with negative mind, we call them as pessimist. People with positive mind, we call them optimist. So most of the time when people are pessimists at the grassroots level and at the middle level, they don't find an opportunity, they don't see an opportunity. They they happen to spot only risk and uncertainty, right? So we'll have to change them. Now when we look at, we'll have to present them. Now stop looking at the risk, look at the opportunity that we have got. So when we have that particular business opportunity, when there's a lot of money over there, when there's a lot of fortune over there, okay, let us face the risk, let us face the risk, let us overcome the uncertainty. For a certain period of time, it might be very, very tough. But what we are going to gain in front of that, this particular hardship or this particular uncertainty or risk is nothing in compared to what we are going to achieve. No, that purpose. It should be the purpose driven. Okay. And finally, the vision should be very unique in nature. Right? This particular vision needs to be very unique in nature. Right? Now mingling all these particular five attributes, we can see this particular vision taking place, practically being achieved by one of the IT industry stalwarts, Mr. Narayan Murthy. Narayan Murthy, having completed his BTech from IIT and then went on to do a post-graduation diploma from Indian Institute of Ahmedabad, he joined Patni Computers as a programmer, and then he resigned from there and then moved on to other organizations. All right. Finally, he could not find satisfaction as an employee, so he thought the only satisfaction or his purpose is to be an entrepreneur. So he happened to befriend like-minded people like Nandan Nelkani, Gopal Krishna, Panish Murthy. Okay, so this set of like-minded people came together, and together they floated an organization called Infosys in the year 1978-79. right? So by 1978, 79, when they floated, after having floated Infosys, so 1982, they were able to get certain contracts for their IT company, right? They started getting contracts for that particular company, and the company slowly started moving ahead in spite of the competition that they had at that particular time, right? They were still able to march ahead. And the boost came when Indira Gandhi died and Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister. When Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister, he has given special emphasis. He trust a lot on telecommunications, right? A lot of importance was given to computers and telecommunications. The business started flourishing. But because of few macroeconomic problems, come 1990, 1991, we were in a very pathetic stage. Right? Our economy was going nowhere. We had a coalition-run governments. We had three prime ministers being changed in a very short period of time, and people were calling for midterm elections since this particular government collapse, midterm elections. Right? And then when this particular economic scenario was very bad, the remaining four people told Mr. Narayan Murthy, look, Mr. Murthy, the business is not at all good. And what I look for the future of our country, now our country is going to sink and we are in a very bad state. So the best thing is, let us sell this particular business, right? Let us sell this particular business, and then whatever money we get, let us part with that particular. And this happened in 1988, 89. Right, but Narayan Murthy said, no, I'm not going to do that because I have invested my lifetime savings into this particular business. Having invested my lifetime savings, I'm not going to part with this business and then start a new business, something like that. No, it's not going to happen. I'm going to stick on with this particular business. If need be, you sell your shares to me, I'll buy them. Right, whatever is your stake, you sell that, I'll buy that particular stake and I'll return your money, but I'll not shut down this particular business because this is my dream. So he went ahead and then he told them, see, something drastic is going to happen in 2 years because we are going to hit the rock bottom. And I mean, people that particular time, we heard about banks becoming bankrupt, businesses becoming bankrupt, and then businesses collapsing. Here, a country was becoming bankrupt. We did not have money to pay for our fuel. We did not have money to pay for our importers. Right. So something drastic will happen. Exactly as he predicted in 88, 89, come 1991, we did not have that particular money to meet our importers. We took all our gold from our country, we pledged it and then put it in a Bank of England. Still did not work out. Then we had elections, new government formed. PV Narasimha Rao became the prime minister and he appointed Manmohan Singh as the finance minister. And then the rest is the history. You know that Manmohan Singh in the year 1991 July he introduced LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Right. So after that, the business. So I mean, what I'm trying to look at is the remaining four people when they looked at the future because they were pessimistic in their mind. They were only looking at the risk, and the risk was very high risk. And they thought when we go and collide with that particular risk, when we enter into that particular time frame, and when we are not able to go anywhere, when we sell, we will not even be getting 50% of what we invested. Today, if we sell at least whatever we invested, that money we'll be able to get back. But if we don't do that now, later we are going to repent because we are not even going to get half of our investment back. So when these people were so pessimistic, they were not able to see the opportunity. Narayan Murthy went and looked beyond the risk. He did not stop at the risk. He also knew the risk was very, very high. He did not stop there. He went and looked beyond the risk. Beyond the risk, he found a golden opportunity. Beyond the risk, he could find this particular business becoming the number one business. So that's what a leader needs to have. Now that's what a leader, that's what we call as a vision. That's what we call as a dream. So Narayan Murthy was able to believe in his vision. He was able to believe in his particular dream. And similarly, he was able to impress other people, and remaining people also become partakers of his particular dream. In the year 1997, Infosys is the first Indian company to be listed in Nasdaq, in New York Stock. First Indian company to be listed in overseas. Right? Who should have predicted? And over the years, Infosys happened to become the most reputed, most respected IT company in the industry. You see, Narayan Murthy was future oriented. He know what is the destination, and whatever dream that he had, it was inspiring. At the same time, it was challenging also at that particular time. And his particular dream was able to motivate the entire people, whoever were working in Infosys at that particular time, right? It motivated. Even to this day, when they recall those particular times, everybody can share their own story. Every employee will have his own story to share of those particular times. And his dream was purpose driven, and at the same time, it was unique. And because it had all these attributes combined together, Mr. Murthy was one of the India's most successful business IT magnate. Now, when we look at this particular components of strategic vision, we have two components: core ideology and envision future. Right? Envision future is the ability to go and see beyond the risk, which we already discussed. Core ideology consists of core values and core purpose. Now, it is this particular core values and core purpose which will help an organization to overcome the risk. If the organizational values are not strong, the organization's ideology, or if the organization why it want to do business, if that particular purpose is not strong enough, whenever tough times come, there is a recession, there's a pandemic like coronavirus, or tomorrow it might be something else, organizations will collapse. They will not cross the risk. They will not reach the other side of the shore. They will simply collapse. Right? So along with this particular, dream that you have, organizations, especially the founding members of the organizations, the core values should always be strong. Right? The core values should always be strong. Now, Tata started their business almost 200 years back, 1800, so sometime around 1850s, 1860s, they started this particular business. All right? It's like 140 years now, 160 years like that. Okay. They started their business. They believed in certain principles, and those particular values were shared from generation to generation. Right? JRD Tata made Tata the best organization. JRD Tata built this particular, Tata empire in India. So in India, it became number one. And come Ratan Tata turned Indian Tata businesses into global business. It's no longer called as Tata Tea, it is called as Tata International Beverages. Now, Tata Motors, it does not only own Indian brands, it owns international brands. Tata Steel product is not just sold in India, it's sold in more than 120 countries around the world. You see, what made Tata the unique? What is the uniqueness of Tata over the generations? From Jamshed G Tata to JRD Tata to Ratan Tata. Right? Now, what was common among all these generations? The common thing is the value system, the organization values. So, whatever be the circumstances, right? Many things may change around us, but some values like honesty, some values like hard work, some values like ethics, they don't change. Right? They will always remain the same. Murder is a sin. Murder was a sin 4,000 years back. Murder is a sin today also. Alright? No, those religious values don't change. There are certain values, and these particular values will never change. Hard work impressed people. Hard work has given foods people when man started his civilization. 4,000 years after we completed the human civilization, even today, hard work pays. There is no substitute for hard work. Right? So, some values, no, they remain.
Now, these things are the components of our strategic vision. Right. So core ideology will remain unchanged. It's an enduring character. It consists of core values and purpose. Now, core values are essential. They are enduring tenets of the organization, right? And core purpose, it is the reason for the existence. Why an organization is existing, it gives an answer for that. And with regarding to envision future, it's a long-term objective of an organization. And the most important part of our strategic vision, it gives a clear description of articulated future. Now that's what our vision does. So tomorrow's class, we will start off with mission. Okay. So today we have got less than 1 minute.